Hello, Unity of Fredericksburg. I'm guessing you already know who I am. So let's jump right into today's message. Easter or Easter. Dun, 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 dun. So anyhow, today, normally, a lot of times people think about Easter or talk about Easter in terms of bunnies, baskets, and bonnets and stuff. And yeah, Jesus does definitely come up in it. But many times we don't focus on Easter for what Easter can give us, can invite us, can call us to being. We usually think of Easter in terms of what it has been, historically, religiously, or grounded in religiosity, as Reverend Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith would say. Today we're going to expand and push the envelope a little bit more and go somewhere where our metaphysical lessons can help us evolve in consciousness. So, bunnies, chocolate, and Jesus, again. What if we took the invitation that Easter affords us to examine, reinvent, and resurrect the truth of our being? We get to choose this day, not only who we will be, but how we're going to show up, how we will be. Let's rise anew this Easter, especially this Easter. So when you think of Easter, which Easter comes to mind? Sometimes it may be the childhood Easter of, like I said before, getting the Easter baskets, thoughts of the Easter bunny, the Easter egg hunt, thoughts of getting a new outfit for Easter. Like there are a lot of things that may come to mind when we think about Easter. But rarely when we think about it, even in our New Thought circles, rarely do we think of Easter in terms of the metaphysical ramifications of what it can be. Shifting from Easter to what Easter could be involves a paradigm shift. And what I mean by that is, using the acronym that I'm sharing, it means emancipation, allness, stillness, truth, enlightenment, and reign, or reigning, the element of being a good steward or a more effective steward. So let's dive deeper and explore each of these individually, if you're ready. Let's begin. So, emancipation. Emancipation is the freeing of someone from something, such as freeing someone from the confines of slavery. What enslaves your consciousness? Like, think for a minute, because all of us in this paradigm of this realm of duality potentially have some things, some ideas, some belief forms, something that enslaves us. For example, are you enslaved or held back or held captive by fear, worry, lack, scarcity, or your imaginings of what if, like the possible, like what if this and what if that? Like how many of us overthink things, or it's always worst case scenario, plan for the worst, expect the best, but plan for the worst. If that's the paradigm we're operating from, then honestly, technically, metaphysically, then we are bound by, we are enslaved by a thought form of terrorism, terroristic ideas, and being bound by the worst case scenario idea. So if we're going to step into what Easter can be, then we have to be emancipated from anything that is crucifying us, anything that is enslaving us, anything that is burying us. But we have to become aware of it. We have to be willing to truthfully explore, am I enslaved by anything? And if so, what steps do I need to take in order to set myself free? Allness. Allness as it relates to New Thought is the idea, this awareness and recognition that God is all there is. Oftentimes, we still, even in New Thought, we still reference God as an anthropomorphic idea rather than it being the full totality of everything and everyone. So, the awareness and recognition that God is all there is, and therefore must be exactly what you are. This allness must be beyond duality and the expression of duality. It is yin and yang, positive and negative, light and darkness, the divine masculine and feminine, and so much more that is even beyond anything that words could describe or possibly contain. Now, let's go back for a moment, because when I say it's light and dark, positive and negative, how many times do we say things like, just think positive? You know, you're not positive enough, or she's so negative. But keeping in mind that a battery has to have a positive and negative charge in order to have power. We label and condemn the negative. We label and condemn the darkness, knowing full well if we were to stare at the full expression of light that comes from the sun, we would be blinded. And so we need light and dark. The artist knows that when I'm shading something, the shadow is necessary to make the image pop and show 3 dimensions. So what would happen if we recognize the full totality of all of its God? The positive and the negative, the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine. That it's both and even more than that. And that what it is, you are. Voltaire says God is a circle, whose circumference is nowhere, whose center is everywhere. So here we have, there's the circle, there's the circumference, there's the center. God is the circle whose circumference is nowhere, but the center is everywhere. So at what part of the center of God are you? Is it that much? Is it that much? Is it that much? Is it that much? What about that? Or what about that? You are everything. The very allness of everything that God is everything that we are. That there is not a part of us that is absent of or void of God. God's Spirit, life is all there is, and what it is, you are. That the exact same attributes, qualities, powers that we attribute to Jesus the Christ, the fullness of it with Him must also be present with each and every one of us. See, the thing we talk about is that Jesus was aware of His divinity. We're not. Jesus claimed His divinity. We do not. Jesus walked the walk of His divinity. We occasionally we stumble, we fall, we think we're only human, and we go about our business. How many times have we said things like, I'm only human? No, you're not. Or we'll say things like, we are having a human experience. No, you are spirit, having a spiritual experience that we call human. But there is no part of us that is God and human. Duality, spirit and flesh. But as we just saw, God is everything. So even the flesh is made of God's stuff. It's made of spirit. It is life itself. So it's both and transcends even that. All that God is, each and every one of us must be. The allness. So we have emancipation, we have allness. Next we have this idea of stillness. Stillness refers to our ability to consciously quiet the body of movement, the mind of thoughts, specifically those that are not life-affirming. Now normally we would have said specifically those that are negative. Remember what I just said. We're not talking positive and negative, because the negative energy, the negative charge is part of what gives the battery its energy. The yin and yang, the negative, is the dark side, the feminine side, the intuitive side. Clearly that's not a bad thing. So let's no longer talk about positive and negative. Let's no longer talk about light as it's good and dark as it's bad. Let's talk about what's life-affirming and not life-affirming. Stillness is, how do I quiet my mind of those thoughts that are not life-affirming? Those thoughts that keep me bound and enslaved, for example. And the emotions of extreme highs and lows that distract us from the present or cause us to grow attached to something. So, for example, we may become so happy and so elated that we want that to go on forever. Like I would imagine that when I finally get to Walt Disney World, I'm going to be so elated that I'm not going to want to leave, but I'm going to have to. So I cannot become attached to the idea of happiness as an external thing. I'm internally forever that which God is, as it expresses as this human body, this mind, this life, this breath, all God. So happiness is my innate state. But if I think of happiness as an external thing, that when I do this or when I get this, I become happy, it's easy to become attached to it. It becomes the drug of choice. Similarly, the lows, the depressive thoughts, the depressive feelings, we can become attached to that too. Like I don't want to be too happy, so because I don't, God forbid, that the other shoe will fall. So stillness is, how do I quiet my body? How do I quiet my mind? How do I quiet my emotions to simply become available? Stillness as an example, for example, when we're breathing, there's the inhalation and there's a pause before the exhalation. That pause is the stillness. When the exhalation happens and there's a pause before the next inhalation. Pause, exhalation, pause, inhalation. See, we're already doing it. We're already participating in stillness. As I speak each word, there is a moment where there is a silent pause between one word and the next. That pause is stillness. How do I step into that more deeply, consciously, is the invitation. Truth. Truth is that aspect of what we are that is unchanging amid the ever-changing expanse of what consciousness is. See, this body may change. It changed from infant to toddler to adolescent to grown man, eventually to corpse. Possibly. I'm working on that though. But there is this, the physical body will change. We may change professions. We may change relationships. We change in a lot of ways, but there is still that part of us that never changes. We are love made flesh. Nothing we could ever do is going to change that or make us less God. Nothing we could ever do is going to make us less holy. We could do all kinds of inhumane acts or activities, behaviors, but it doesn't change the truth of what we are. You are still God. You are still love made flesh. What you are choosing is to use your divine power and innate abilities to hurt, harm, and hinder another. But you still must be God because God is all there is. So how do we anchor to the truth of our being? Just as there are laws of physics, gravity, the laws of buoyancy, aerodynamics, there are unchanging spiritual laws and principles that are also unchanging. So how do we recognize and understand such things as the laws of gestation? There is a time period between thought and form in manifestation. So recognizing certain things about that help us to move into a new state of stepping into what Easter can be. God is all there is, and what it is absolute goodness. That's the truth of your being as well. God is all there is, and what it is absolute goodness. God is all there is, and what it is you are, therefore, you, in your truest essence of being, are absolute goodness as well. In religious science, there is often a phrase that is used that says, there is nothing that needs to be healed, only truth to be revealed. So what truth about our beingness, especially amid this pandemic, what is the truth that we are invited to know more of? Let's go to the next part. Questioning faith, because oftentimes we think of faith in terms of it being like faith is a muscle that we build, and it's not. Faith, do you have faith in God? If you have faith in God, then yes, you have to have faith as a muscle that you're using. Or, do you have faith from God? It's a higher level of the faith that I have is this faith that is from God. But there's still God that it's from. And then we have the faith of God. the spiritual idea that what God is, you are. You are a walking demonstration of faith. Every word you speak is a word spoken from some place, consciousness of faith. But what do you have faith in is the question. Do you have faith that this infinite absolute goodness is all that there is and it is the truth of everything, even when we see something that may be counter to it or appear to be opposite of it? Can we still anchor to that truth and walk from that space? Or is it easier to have faith in evil? Is it easier to have faith in the bad people? Is it easier to have faith in the corrupt government? Is it easier to have faith in pain, misery, and trauma? Is it easier to have faith in that than have faith in love? Or, as I said, the faith of love. Love as a demonstration of faith. Which one's easier? See, this is where the hard work comes, because this is where we have to question ourselves and transcend to move beyond it. Enlightenment. Enlightenment is simply the recognition and realized awareness of your divinity, to such a degree that you are more effectively able to choose more life-affirming thoughts, words, feelings, and actions. Eric Butterworth says that the most appropriate time to namaste, or as he says, namaskar, to someone is the precise moment and time and person that you don't want to. The person that you dislike the most is the one that I recognize that the divine that I am must also be you, because it's all there is. But I don't like you, and yet, how do I ground and find that place where I can still, even I can still recognize that you must be that which God is as well. That is the time to namaste. That is the time, the most appropriate time, to recognize someone else's divinity. To recognize the only divinity as it individualizes itself as someone else. That's what enlightenment is. It is a conscious choice to do what enlightenment calls us to do. It is a conscious choice to rise and, like the lotus in the mud, to rise from the mud and then to bloom. Are we willing to do that? And then we have to reign. To reign is taking authority, being the most life-affirming and effective steward of our own lives that we possibly can be, which can only occur if we have put into conscious activation each of the previous steps. Because until we do so, we are going to forever be stuck in the tomb. The tomb being, we're going to be stuck in our traumas, our obsessions, our misaligned paradigms, beliefs, and practices, and our brokenness. Milton said, "It is better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven." But is it better to reign in hell than to reign in heaven? It is better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven. It is better to reign in hell than to reign in heaven. Pause for a moment and think about this. In our lives, whatever it is we're doing, we are reigning something. We are stewarding something. We are moving in our lives in one way or another. So we are either reigning in hell and serving in hell because our thoughts and our paradigms are not life-affirming, or we choose to reign in heaven and serve in heaven. Heaven is a state of consciousness. We get to choose. We get to choose how we're going to steward and be effective stewards of our lives, our thoughts, our words, our actions, and our feelings. Because until we are ready to truly take authority, then we are forever going to be at the mercy of someone and something else, and we're going to be stuck in the tomb. Call to action. This week, as your homework, journal each of the Easter concepts and explore what spiritual practices can nurture and strengthen your active engagement with each one of them. Explore what it means to be faith and not simply to have faith. Journal what resurrection, rebirth, and renewal in love and faith in action can look like in your life. Have an interactive conversation with someone about what is yours to do from the vantage point of your new Easter awareness. Talk about what it means for you to walk the walk. If you do any of those homework assignments, feel free to email me and just let me know how the process was for you. So at this time, let's simply anchor in for a brief moment of meditation as we simply allow the breath to be breathed in, through, and as this body temple. Feeling the inhalation and exhalation with no micromanaging or worry of where the next breath will come from. No micromanaging or worrying about where this last exhalation breath went, but simply breathing in the now, recognizing that the body has its intelligence, knowing how to breathe. And as we surrender to the breath, ultimately what we are surrendering to is this realization that God, life itself, is breathing itself in, through, and as each and every one of us. And so from this place of surrender and allowing, we go through Easter, each individual letter, each individual concept of what it means to be emancipated, to be free, what it means to step into and avail ourselves to the absolute allness of all that God is, what it means to be still, to quiet the busyness of life, what it means to live from an awareness of what truth is about our lives, the truth for our lives, truth living our lives. Simply breathing and recognizing that which is enlightenment we already are. Knowing that we are already God, and God is already infinite wisdom, knowledge, and awareness. Then what it is, we already are. So we need not seek enlightenment, we need not strive for enlightenment, we simply need to avail ourselves and let that which it is be what it is as us. And then reign, take authority of our lives. In the same way that Yeshua, Jesus, took authority and spoke with power, walked with power, demonstrated power. Allow that ability, that authority to rise within us with every thought, with every word, with every feeling, and with every action. Demonstrating that we are the life-affirming stewards of life and love and this divinity that is showing up in, through, and as us. And so we simply breathe into the silence, allowing this awareness to rise and to be what it is as us. Recognizing that the all that is God is present right here, incarnating itself in, through, and as every single one of us. We recognize that at any moment this divine Ruach, breath of God, is our conscious reminder that Spirit is present in, through, and as all that we are. That there is only one life, and that life is God, living itself in, through, and as each and every one of us. That there is only one mind, that mind is God. And that every thought we have is already from, in, and as the very mind of God. And so we simply avail ourselves to allowing that which God is to be it as us. That every thought, every word, every feeling, and every deed, life affirming, love affirming, divinity affirming, knowing that this is who we are, knowing that this is what we are. We rise from the tomb, resurrected, renewed, and reborn, that we may shift and shape our life experience and that of this planet as well, enveloping it in love, in peace, in harmony, where all people cooperate, communicate, and collaborate, demonstrating a world that works for all. This is so, and so it is. Amen. Namaste and blessings.